I just want to make a couple of comments on the opening speeches from the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, both of whom focus very heavily on the role of the European Union and the great European Union that we have, and the shared agenda and the cooperation on dealing with what they see as a European-wide problem. And indeed, we have many problems across the globe, and those of us in the first world have a lot less than the people who are fleeing war, famine and climate-related disasters. But I thought it was really disgraceful at the recent EU summit, where crocodile tears were shed over the earthquake which has just happened in Syria and Turkey, but the summit itself was dominated by the drive to strengthen Fortress Europe, to look at ways of battening down the hatches and in tightening up all the borders. The summit approved another 500 million euro in military aid for Ukraine, by comparison to 6.5 million in emergency humanitarian assistance for Syria and Turkey. And I think this really says to us that the powers that be in the European Union have three real priorities at the moment. The first is to make their own people pay for the crisis in the economies that they have. They're making working people pay for inflation by pushing up interest rates and by pushing wages down. The second is by pouring weapons into Ukraine so that they can defeat their Russian rivals, and using all the resources to do that. And the third is closing down borders to migrants and refugees. This is not helpful, and it doesn't show a Europe of solidarity. It is a Europe with an ostrich head in the sand, not like one portrayed by the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach earlier on. And indeed, it didn't just start with the earthquake. Going way back to 2019, the programme to return all migrants crossing the Mediterranean to Libya, where they face death camps, discrimination, where Amnesty International describes the arbitrary detention, torture, cruelty, rape, sexual violence, extortion, forced labour and unlawful killings, all of which was paid for by the EU by forcing people into that stateless country. So I think the EU has a lot to answer for, but let's come to the answers that this government needs to give. And I believe that that is around the housing crisis and the health crisis. We have the highest level of homeless figures ever, and yet people are coming into the country and we're expecting everybody else to sit back and say that there isn't a problem. The only people who are not recognising that problem is the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach and the people opposite me today. Successive governments have created a problem in housing in particular, in healthcare and in childcare, and that's feeding into the myths and the lies and the hatred that is being developed by the far right. Now, unless you own up to that, you keep burying your head into the sand, both at EU and at national level, then we can't work together and we can't deal with this in a manner that is reasonable. In other words, we have to get rid of you and get a new government that will deal with it and face the truth.